My title on this talk is a bit long-winded. Apologies for that. But as Andrea mentioned, I've been interested in doing research on and writing about universal basic income for many years. And there's a lot of reasons to think about universal basic income as a way to eliminate poverty, increase economic and social equality, add to human freedom. But I think an absolutely key argument for universal basic income is that it's one ingredient in a very, I think, radical transition to a sustainable post-growth economy and a society that's characterized by social and climate justice. So I'll talk about that a little bit within the time constraints, but I'll also offer a few reflections on how open access strategies have really helped in advancing the case for basic income in the ecological realm, among other arguments for this kind of approach. So, like the other speakers, I just want to acknowledge that as somebody who works at the University of Manitoba, we work on the lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and of course on the homeland of the Métis Nation. So we respect the treaties that were made here, although maybe on the side of the crown of the Canadian government, we betrayed those treaties on many instances. And also, of course, in Manitoba, we're at the in the homeland of the Métis Nation, the journey to justice of our relationship with Métis people is of the utmost importance. Okay, just for a few minutes, I think some of you may have heard of this notion of basic income. It's actually been entering Canadian political discourse in interesting ways in recent years. There's a standard definition of basic income that comes from the Basic Income Earth Network, that it's a periodic cash payment unconditionally delivered to everyone on an individual basis without means test or work requirement. So this definition of basic income, it's I should mention that my presentation this morning here, it reflects work that's being done not just by academics, but by activists, by social welfare policy experts, by a variety of players in the political realm, I guess, and social movement realm. The Basic Income Earth Network is actually an interesting amalgam of all these different constituencies. So that's the definition of basic income that's been, I guess, in place from the get-go, from BN, as it's called. Here in Canada, and especially in recent years, we've been talking about a basic income guarantee. It varies a bit from the BN definition because it's income tested, it's targeted to working age people. It's really, I think, in many in interesting ways, it builds on some benefits that we already have in place, like the old age security guaranteed income supplement for seniors, like the Canada Child Benefit for families with young kids, other smaller benefits for working age people. So I think in Canada, we've been working towards, the various national organizations have been working towards an income tested variation on basic income, which will provide a basic income guarantee, will ensure an economic floor for everyone. It won't necessarily involve upfront payments, checks or credits on a monthly basis paid to all Canadians. Maybe we'll get to that more ambitious state at some point, but I think reading the political tea leaves, we're really working hard to get a basic income guarantee in place. Now, I'm focusing here on the ecological argument for basic income, as I mentioned. There's many other arguments, and I think good reasons to do basic income. It includes elimination. They include elimination of poverty, support for precarious workers, which of course is the situation most young people are in these days in the labor market, reducing, if not eliminating, economic and social inequality, and just, giving people freedom over time and over choices in their lives. With an economic floor, they're not subject to, the old expression, wage slavery. So all those arguments are valid, but of course today, given the focus of this event, I want to focus on the ecological argument and how basic income fits in with transition to a sustainable economy and a more just society. So I guess there's about 4 premises to my argument here. First of all, to address the climate emergency, which I think was very well outlined by the previous speakers, we have to reject the notion of green growth. That's become popular and I guess controversial in some quarters. In fact, move beyond that and work towards a post-growth economy that engages in very fundamental redistribution of economic wealth and ends overall economic growth. Now, within this, we have to think about redistribution on the national level, but also on the international level, and the transfer of wealth from over-consuming and wealthy northern countries to countries mostly in the south that who mentioned in the previous presentation that the case of Ghana, countries that are still on the path towards ensuring prosperity for all their citizens. And it's another premise in this argument that universal basic income, as well as, a broad range of high quality and comprehensive public services, are necessary requirements in moving towards a just, socially just post-growth economy. They're not enough. There's not a sufficient requirement, but it's a piece of the puzzle, an essential ingredient. So hence, here in Canada and in other countries as well, we need to set in place universal basic income or a near approximation thereof to make sure that everyone has a guaranteed economic floor, because essentially what we're trying to do is decouple labor market participation from economic security. We want to ensure that everybody has enough to live on and has a decent material standard of living, regardless of their status in the labor market or regardless of their other characteristics of their situation. So if we're moving towards a post-growth society, we have to ensure that everybody still has sufficient income, because of course most of us here in Canada and other countries still earn most of our living from labor market participation, at least during our adult years. And of course, universal basic income will free up for both citizens and communities discretion over time, and will, I think, make more feasible a radical and democratic transition to a social ecological state in which we could address the climate emergency that we're currently immersed in. So that's kind of a set of, I guess, premises that lie behind, from my point of view, the ecological argument for basic income. It ensures everybody has economic security as we move towards a post-growth society and a sustainable world. Now, it's been interesting, of course, a lot of the work on basic income precedes our recent concern about the climate emergency. And in fact, the modern basic income movement goes back to the mid-1980s. And these are just some of the organizations worldwide, both in Canada and in other countries, that have been addressing basic income. The logo up in the upper left is the Basic Income Earth Network that was kind of started the ball rolling in the mid-1980s. As I mentioned, it's very interesting consortium of academics, of people interested in social policy and social justice and environmental activists. So I've been to many BN conferences over the years, and it's a really good study in kind of how constituencies can collaborate in a very open way and in a very cooperative way, sort of, I guess, presaging in some ways our notion of open access in the academy. But there's lots of national organizations, local organizations, provincial organizations here in Canada. The photo in the middle, it's actually taken from a project that's currently underway in Kenya, where an NGO that's based in the US called Give Direct is piloting basic income to select villages in Kenya to everybody, where they get a credit over a cell phone into electronic credit into their bank account. So it's one of many pilots in basic income that's being tried around the world. Now, just to spend a few minutes talking about open access and how that's affected the way in which basic income has evolved over the years, the struggle for basic income, I guess. This is a picture actually from the founding Congress of the Basic Income Earth Network, which took place in Louvain-la-Neuve in Belgium in the mid-1980s. So you can see this was pre-internet, pre-web, pre-email. It's a small group of, I think, very dedicated and keen people talking about something in real time in a particular location. But it sort of did get the ball rolling. Now, over the years, I think the basic income movement internationally has really adapted to changing patterns of how we collaborate and how we communicate with one another using information and communication technology. In the upper left, you see, this is, those of us who are old enough remember that this is the way that newsletters used to look, right? Text heavy. This was the newsletter called the News Flash, which came from the Basic Income Earth Network, and very reliably every month was sent out to everybody who belonged to BN or everybody who wanted to receive it. And for many years, I think it was a rudimentary but essential form of communication. When we did actually have the ability to send things around electronically and then very quickly globally. But over the years, of course, you know, many other tools have been used, including the standard social media apparatus like Facebook and Twitter. It's been essential too, like open access and cybernetic communication is important, but it's been I think very important that the basic income movement has been able to enjoy occasional gatherings of real people in real time together in the same place. And there's been many congresses over the years. There was the poster with the blue face was the BN Congress we hosted in Canada. Well, about 8 years ago now. A couple of years later, we met in Korea, and there's been a whole series of meetings that have drawn together people that have, you know, kind of been in the same room at the same time and built relationships and helped to contribute to a cohesive and I think in many ways very effective movement. Now, of course, in early 2020, the world changed when the pandemic arrived. So like many other organizations, the basic income movement had to adapt. So the picture in the upper left, it was a publicity piece from the BN 2021 conference, which was hosted in Scotland, but was actually purely online. The map indicates a project was undertaken during the pandemic to map out local networks around the globe. Of course, during the pandemic, it became essential to communicate via internet. Now, things have been changing recently. the poster in the lower left, this was a conference that was held in, it was actually physically, there was a physical meeting in Portland, Oregon in June 2022. But it included online elements. I didn't show up, but I participated as an online registrant. And I think we're still working at this, hybrid conferences that make the most of eating in the same room, for people who can show up, but also making it accessible to people around the globe who all you need is an internet connection. So it'll be interesting to see where hybridization goes with social movement building over the upcoming years. Now, I think the basic income movement, once again, this is all based on open and free access of resources across through cyberspace. The pictures in the upper left and lower right are taken from a photo project that was done by a person by the name of Jessie Golem in Hamilton, Ontario. It was kind of a photo voice kind of project that she traced what happened to people in Hamilton, Ontario, who were on the Ontario Basic Income pilot that was precipitously canceled by Doug Ford when he assumed power in 2018. It was the Ontario had a very interesting basic income pilot underway that was summarily canceled with the new government. There's been other kind of multimedia strategies used by the basic income movement, short videos. There was actually a very excellent film done about the basic income pilot in Dauphin, Manitoba, that took place in the 1970s. The picture in the upper right. There's a national campaign on in Canada called Basic Income Now, which incorporates photography and online events and narratives from people who are directly involved with or have been involved with basic income. And of course, other kinds of films and multimedia resources. Thinking about challenges on open access, and actually Dr. Pinto mentioned this in his opening remarks. We have a long way to go yet in academic research in the basic income field to ensure open access of what's often very important and very high quality research. The primary journal that's put out around basic income is called Basic Income Studies, published by De Gruyter. And I was actually a co-editor of the journal when it was transitioning to ownership by De Gruyter. And it's not open access. It's an academic journal with a significant subscription fee. Of course, if you're lucky enough to have access to a university library, you can get it. But many other people who might need access to this information don't have it. The graphic in the middle is one book in a big series on basic income that's been published by Palgrave Macmillan. And once again, very important and good research has been done, but these are hard copy books that are quite expensive and are really only accessible to libraries, university libraries typically, and other journals like Basic Income Worldwide that is often hard for people at the grassroots and people who are activists as opposed to academics and policy experts to access. So I'll just, one of the multimedia aspects we've used is a very traditional one. The former poet laureate, George Eliot Clark, wrote a poem about basic income in a couple of years back, and I'll kind of go along the same path as our former president David Bernard used to do and read one stanza from George Eliot's poem on basic income. Whoop. No matter how rich, the people own greater riches. For our tax dollars are ours to fulfill all our wishes. Why not weave ourselves a mass protective web to catch all who tumble, whether the poor or pleb, off the high wire of capitalist hijinks and low-down tricks, the badly frayed ropes and greasy balancing sticks? Why not grant ourselves because the people's money's ours. Platforms to stand on, cushions to land on, fail-safe moors. Okay, I'll wind it up with that and look forward to the next presentation and further discussion. Thank you.